Good evening. You are listening live to the Extreme Movie Show. I'm your host, Rob, broadcasting to you from the Extreme Studios in the Pine Hills Palace, just west of Orlando, Florida. Tonight, we're going over something very special. That's the RDV guy from the Midwest. He's not from Romania or the Bavarian Alps or wherever all these evil creatures come from, because, guys, we're going back to way back to the very beginning, Universal Studio Monsters. We're doing the original Dracula. I think it's 1931 with Bela Lugosi. RDV, this is not a first watch for me. It's one of the first creature features or horror movies, whatever you want to call it, that I ever saw as a kid that I remember, along with the other ones, Frankenstein, and then later on The Mummy and some others, Creature from a Black Lagoon. Was this a first watch for you?
This is a first watch for me. Actually, and I say, well, yes and no, because I have seen parts of this movie before online or TV or YouTube, whatever, clips, and I had no idea it was from this movie. So, like I said, like we're talking about the Renfield scene in the very beginning, I had no idea that was actually from this movie. I forgot, because I only seen the part where Renfield gets, he gets it. He gets not turned, but he gets attacked, the little cross on him. But honestly, though, the way these are shot, these older movies, like, I love the black and white. Obviously, it's a soundstage, I know, but I love the certain little things, where he's like, I gotta go meet Dracula. Like, Dracula, the town guy's like, are you a freaking idiot?
Like, right.
I love like the over the top accents and all that stuff. He goes to the castle. He's like, I got a meeting with him, and he's like, I go meet the driver. He's like, obviously it's Bela Lugosi as the driver. He's like, takes his bag stuff and he gets in the back of the buggy and stuff. And all of a sudden, he's like, we're kind of going a little faster. He's like, he's like, and also he looks at the driver, and it's a bat. And he's like, what the hell? And he goes, and he's like, his luggage is gone. And then he goes out to yell at the driver at the castle. And I love how he just kind of like, there's no one there. Yes. But then he sees like the door opens by itself, and I love that. Meets Dracula, and Bela Lugosi adds just the weight to this. His natural accent. He doesn't need to put on the the blah blah blah. Doesn't have to do that. He's not, or Christopher.
He never does. Yeah, like we were saying in the chat, he never does it. It's just, but it's associated with him, right?
I know, right?
The count. It's all because of the count.
I know. 1, 2. It's like, so I love it. They're in the castle, and he's like, oh, come follow me. As he goes upstairs, he goes right through the cobwebs, but like he kind of like dematerializes and kind of appears on the side. He goes, and then Renfield's like, what the heck? How am I supposed to get this? He's gonna like go through the, the base of the spider web, and you see the spider on the ground, and he's like, oh, the Dracula, he spins his web, it's like, it's like to catch his victims, and like,
the first characters I ever saw that spoken like allegories or whatever like that, like it means something else.
right. Yeah, and I love this because, like, not only that, you get to see like when Dracula wakes up, because they said like the sun just went down, he gets, he's gone up, his hand reaches out and he opens up and it just holds there for a second, and then he gets up. You see the possum runs inside a coffin with the corpse in it. You see like everyone's getting out of their coffin, and Dracula and the 3 brides, and then this little cockroach or opens the door, and his little baby coffin and crawls out. I was like, what the heck is this crap? But I was like, what is the point? As a joke, like, but the bugs, everything, the talk about the townsmen, really talking up Dracula. Really, it's like when we talk about like those movies where we have the old guy at the gas station. Yeah, you don't want to go down that way. You're going to die.
This is where it all comes from. Except for the town being a hype man, it's an individual. Yeah.
I love it.
The bicycle guy.
Yeah, I said, this is so great. Like he spins the tail, and says like, oh, he can turn into a wolf, he can turn into a bat, he's evil and stuff. And Renfield's like, I'm not afraid. Yeah. So, all we go through, he gets up there and they're talking, and everything is like, you see Dracula open the door. You see like this one room where it's like, he's like, oh, it's great, and Renfield being, now this I want to say about Renfield's manner. It's like, the way he talks is so old school. I love it, and you don't hear people say like, it looks. Thank you. It looks very inviting. Like the bed, everything is like, who talks like that? I mean, I don't think that's even yield talk, unless it's mostly like their interpretation from the book, maybe the
Well,
this
I
is
think the whole idea of Dracula being aristocracy in his own way, no matter what his origin story is that
yeah.
back then there were definitely, I mean, even today you can say class of society, but you could definitely tell from the way people would speak and the way they would address what their stations were. Now it's definitely a bit more blurred, right? So I
Mm-hmm.
think back then it was a bit more common to have that kind of speaking about those things, because you're right, nobody talks about things in a flowery, manner like that.
No, yeah, and like Renfield's a pushover. You could tell from the very beginning. And Bela Lugosi's like, "Hey, you want some wine?" He's like, "It's really really old." He's like, "Oh, thanks." He's like,
I
he's like,
keep saying Renfield, but I think you mean Harker, the guy that goes there to do business, not his, not his assistant.
in the beginning he says Renfield.
I
Yeah,
missed that then. Yeah.
yeah. Well, I'm going off my copy here, so
Gotcha. Okay.
yeah. So, yeah, because Harker's later, I believe. But anyway, he basically he's like Dracula. He's like, he wants some wine. He's like, here you go. It's like really old bottle. And it's like, and he's like, and Renfield's like, dude, like, aren't you gonna drink anything? He's like, I never drink wine. It's like the little pauses, everything. It is such a joy. Yeah, then the brides show up, and then the door opens up, and then there's his luggage, and then 3 girls can walk in. Renfield goes to the window. He doesn't even know they're even there. He goes to the window. He's like, and it's a real castle. He's like yanking on the window. I'm like, he can't. First, is it locked? Then he gets the window open, and he goes there. Out goes the bat drops down on a string. Then he passes out. But the craziest part is like, he doesn't. We keep getting these close up shots of as you see there on the thumbnail behind us background of Bela Lugosi's his eyes, crazy eyes, and thing like, and I imagine if somebody's like, dude, what are you looking at me that for? Like I was waiting for that, but they don't never address it like that. So he gets hypnotized by the bat and then passes out on the ground, and the brides attend to him. Like I said, it is such an interesting movie the way they do this, and I can understand why it's probably one of the best, or if it's not the best, Dracula films.
I'm wondering how hard it would have been to have captured a novel like that, like the way they did it, and if people are more back then, several generations ago, almost 100 years ago, looking at it like, oh wow, they really got this part of it right, because back then a lot of people read for as they would say, flowery language, for leisure, right? So I mean, I can see where they can go, oh, they're really introducing everything, they're not holding back, because again, to your point, a lot of sound stages, a lot of set designs, more theater type based things rather than the way you can film today now, of course. And so the thing with Bela Lugosi, where I think people shit on him, is because he has this thick accent. He is, I think, Romanian by nature, wherever he's from. I don't think it distracts from it. I think Dracula is a very hard person to put on camera without it being campy at this point. I know everybody with the Count Dracula and all that, but think about this. This character's been around forever. He's been around. I think when most people think of vampires, they think him. Maybe they don't. I mean, when you and I talk Marvel movies, I immediately go to Blade. I don't go to Superman. I don't go to whatever, just because of Wesley Snipes, how cool he was. I think his performance here is fine. I think the idea of this just being a good film representation of what the book has is cool. I'm one of those ones where we've done Frankenstein, we've talked about the Wolfman, we've talked about the Mummy, we've talked about the creature from the Black Lagoon, right?
Yes.
I think the Wolfman's probably the saddest, most realistic, darkest one of the three. Or darkest, I would go as Frankenstein, right?
Yeah.
But this one is obviously to me the most supernatural. So as I've gotten older, the less threatening it appears, but I still like watching. And I will say this: there are some other versions of this that exist out there. Particularly, I think there's a Spanish version, maybe a year or two later, that they said, hey, we're going to rip this off of you and do it our own. And it's a bit sexier, much in the same way the Hammer horror films from the 50s onwards were definitely more adult oriented than these Universal ones. But I still think everybody thinks of vampires. They go back to here and say everything starts from here and moves on. And the smart ones will go, well, there's Nosferatu, bro. And I'd be like, yeah, I hear you.
The reason, and I agree with it, because we watched what was it, Monster Squad? What version of Dracula did they have? They had this version.
Mm-hmm.
Every time there's any interpretation in any cartoon, Scooby Doo, whatever, it's this version.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's not the modernized. What was it? Gerrard Butler. No, Dracula 3000 or 2000. What the hell it was? or and then you have, what was the other one? In Blade 3, they had their own Dracula. Was it the? Was it, yeah.
And more like Virus or something or
Yeah.
whatever. Yeah. Yeah.
So I said this is the classic good evening. It's
well,
like,
it's the Predator look, right? You're not blinking.
Yeah.
So it's hypnotic, which Dracula has this charm to you, right? It's also the fact that because of the way they would film stuff and the type of shots they would use back then is a lot more close up. So you got like a lot more headshots and stuff. So then you're also, of course, not seeing a lot of the scenes and stuff to get distracted with CGI and everything. Right. So the performance part of it's really, really impressive in that everyone just goes, okay, I'll just go, and just stare at you with these big eyes, and you can do a Dracula imitation. But Bela Lugosi gets ripped for that, and I don't think he should. I just don't.
Yeah. So, like I said, like Renfield pricked his finger on the paperclip. You saw Dracula's go, oh. It's like I said, it is very campy. There's things, and Marnie's bringing up a point saying the focus on Dracula's eyes. It was what he's on is it basically, and she says harkens. I don't know if she's meant to be a pun there. Back to the sound films, then with Valentino being the
Rudolph, Valentino,
the Sheik, and then hypnotizing with his gaze.
Mm-hmm.
It's just more to me when I see his eyes like this. I didn't think he's like a crack addict. He sees like a drug. He's like, I gotta have it. That's like him with the drug. He sees this. He's like Renfield, like he's and he's squeezing the blood out of his finger. He's purposely doing it. He's like Dracula's like. It's like, hey, come here, bro. It's like, and then Renfield he puts his mouth and sucks on it. He's like, yeah, it's just like so. Yeah, so after I guess the bat drops down and opens over the window. It's knocked out, and then he basically passes out, or at least it looks that way. And then basically, the brides go there like, oh, we're gonna feed on him, and like. Dracula is like, begone thoughts, he's mine.
It's hard not to make fun of it, right? I mean, it is. But that's exactly what it is. Hey, that's my meat. That's my hunky man meat. Leave it alone.
Speaking of hunky man meat, here's Pixula. When he jumps in, he's in the background. He's watching us. That's your cue, bro. I'll add him in myself. Yes.
No one's called me a hunky man meat before. I was a little taken aback. I don't know if I want to be here anymore.
Well, the reason I said that because I figured that'd be the only time you're ever going to hear it in your life. But anyway, speaking of things that are late, what's up, bro?
It's better late than never.
Not true.
No, sometimes it's better late than never.
Gen Z's always a discount time or whatever.
So
you're the young 20-something. Is this a first watch for you?
It was a first watch for me. And I've always wanted to watch it, but just so many hours in a day. Finally get to sit down and watch.
You mean it's so many hours in the night?
Listen, this is the blueprint. It doesn't get any more just iconic than this movie right here. And the funny thing is the segment in Transylvania only lasts about like 15 minutes, and the rest of the movie is everywhere else. And I don't know why, but that first bit, that first entrance, that introduction to Dracula, it's something that's just going to stick with cinema forever. It's
love at first bite.
Yeah. Yes. Yeah. Even before the bite.
It's supposed to be just a transaction, but it turns like it's been a blood transition between these two. Because Renfield, like I said, right? I like Renfield, but after that, after his like whatever Dracula feeds on him, but then he turns him into a ghoul, not a vampire. When he does this, and like he becomes like a insane like lunatic,
Mm-hmm.
kind of like Fritz a little bit.
Well, it's interesting that you say that because there's a sexual element that doesn't really get portrayed a lot in, say, silent films moving on. You know, Mariah, you had mentioned there Valentino and all that, the lovers thing, and certainly there's all that stuff always going on. And the thing about the Guillermo del Toro ones of them, it's supposed to be almost kind of like a virus in a way, so that's a different view on it. Dracula is a nice template that you can use to say different things or give it a bit of different of an idea to it. And so it's hard, I think, to sit there and say, well, it doesn't count if it's as a vampire if it's just you know, not 100% to what the book is, because everyone always wants to complain about it, but you can get too loose, right? But I think it's something that's, you know, like I say, Pixel, when you first joined, we were saying it's hard not to make fun of this because everybody does, but this is where it starts.
Yeah,
I'm not making fun of it.
like, I know you are, but I said as far as the eyes, always a close up of the eyes, the way he acts when he sees the blood.
The brilliance. That's what makes it like stick with you. Every time they would go ahead and they would take those shots that when you see him in the rest of the scene, obviously light is covering his full body, but when you go into those close-ups and you just see the light touching and enhancing the eyes, and it's all in the eyes for this movie. Renfield, after taking the role of Jonathan Harker, goes ahead and signs him to get to England. The makeup around his eyes to go ahead and enhance it, the darkness, and bringing it out, it's brilliant. It's all those small things that just draw you in. Every interaction that Dracula has with everyone in this film, you can't take your eyes off of him. Bela Lugosi absolutely brings to the role. I always knew he would, but it's just getting to actually see it. Fantastic.
And whenever you see Bela Lugosi in later movies, like I think it's Plan 9 from Outer Space, maybe The Phantom Creeps, you know, you can get typecast, right? And just see somebody as one thing, and you go, oh, I can't take this person seriously because you only know him as that in one role. I don't know if that really happened then or whatever, because it's relatively new. But I mean, like I say, you know, the Scooby-Doo stuffed castles all comes from here. Where? Because it came from a book. So I agree. I think Bela Lugosi, just because of his accent, where it does add to it. Sometimes you go, well, you can't take that seriously. But you know, it's a fun watch. It's not one that every year I sit there for my Halloween viewing and go, oh, got to watch it, because while it's cool and it's nice, I've seen it so many times. For me, it's kind of lost its punch. And that's not a negative thing. So I've gone to, like I mentioned, the Spanish version has a little bit different pixel. You know, I've done some of the Hammer horror films, certainly not all of them. Other countries have their own versions of it. So it's interesting to see how people put their own spin on it. And the only way that can happen is because of just how wildly popular this first one is. There's something about horror movies that strikes a chord with you. And like to what I had said earlier when we reviewed The Wolfman, how that is like you feel sad for the guy because it's a curse. There's nothing you can do. That's a human sort of thing. The problem with Dracula as a character is there's that supernatural element to it. But you know, do you consider it more supernatural than satanic? I mean, I guess it depends on how you look at it and how much that matters. But it's still fun to watch, and doesn't. Yeah. It's not a slogfest. It's an enjoyable watch.
I want to bring up. I don't know how far you guys got. I didn't leave a second, but did you guys get the part where he's on the schooner on the Vesta?
The Demeter?
Yeah, no. they call it the Vesta. They don't call it the Demeter, really. Right. Which I thought was interesting because I'm like, the voyage of the Demeter was really done well in the movie.
I haven't seen that movie, so
oh my god! Rob and I reviewed it. It's probably it's glossed. It's kind of glossed over in a lot of the Dracula movies, but just like in this movie, like Dracula's on the boat, and Renfield's the last man standing because everyone else is murdered, and he gets thrown into a sanitarium, and it's like I said, it is just crazy. Now I can only imagine if they would have done this more modern, Renfield would have probably been like coming out of the boat and he's just covered in blood. No, but like I said, it's a very, very interesting movie. It is easy to make fun of Pixel because because there's a certain way like Dracula relaxes certain things. It almost seems like it's overacting. Only because we've never seen this before with a vampire, acting like this. And this when they did this movie, it's like I think it's like the first. This was the first one. They only had the book,
They had Nosferatu, which
Eh,
was not. Well, no, I'm not knocking Nosferatu.
yeah.
I'm just saying that.
But I mean, like of this caliber, Nosferatu was like he didn't look anything like handsome like Bela Lugosi, you know.
Correct.
He wasn't the guy.
Go see.
I say what I want to say. If you don't like it, too bad. So Bela Luigi is really great in this movie. I love how he wears like the little like medal on his chest, like and I'm trying to think about it because when I think of people wearing medals like that and they're over there, I think of like a World War II medal, like a Purple Heart,
right?
And I'm wondering if that's like a callback to him, like Vlad fighting in the wars.
Back in the day, because of all those things, people definitely dressed in a certain way to start, like I say, show their station in life. And so I'm thinking like that too. Like if you're going to see him for who he really is, this is who he is. He's a guy that went to war. You're going to see him in his war outfit.
Yeah. So, alrighty.
I'm checking the comments in here too about the lighting stuff.
We got Eric Breen, who reads as our Dracula. And
pull the strings.
He's a 1, 2.
Pixel, without Bela Lugosi in this version of Dracula, you probably don't have very many Dan Curtis productions. Just saying.
That is true. That is so very true.
Darn you, Luigi.
No, yeah, like when I was watching and you see that scene with the music box that Mina's staring at, it all I could think of was Dark Shadows and Josette's music box. It's just
Do you now see where people get inspired by things that have happened before? I mean that's clearly where it comes from. And I don't know for a fact that the writer that wrote that episode when we reviewed the Dark Shadows revival, the 12, 13 episodes, whatever it was, but it's clearly from that.
Is it inspiration or just stealing it and putting it into
your inspiration?
Inspiration is the artistic term for stealing. Yes.
Yes.
Well, again, it is. It's very well. That music box plays an important part in the story of Dark Shadows, but not so much here. It's just those small touches, though. Those small things that you go ahead and you get it. You're like, oh my god, this is great. Taking something and making it out of love for something else is almost always going to bring a project just that much higher. And I'm able to identify those small things. You can see where Dan Curtis and oh crap, I can't remember the name of the other main writer for the series, but you can see where they could get the inspiration from these classic films. Oh.
Well, the other thing too is like I had mentioned before a few weeks ago when we were talking about British society and films that they had the Industrial Revolution, and at the time that was the highest really almost any civilization has gotten to in a short period of time in terms of resources. So that's when you started seeing the rise of like class systems in terms of politics. So that's where you'd have, I keep saying, going back to communism and its roots about what's fair for the worker, for the state, and then also you have the intellectual revolution as well. So people have these great ideas. So you sometimes say that that's the birthplace of science fiction. Not necessarily, but kind of, at least from the written word, because you had leisure time to sit down and read and stuff. So it was interesting that people brought what was going on at that time into their literature and that we could see it. And that's until the United States, started growing really, really big in the late 1800s there and really took over Britain for the empire and all that. So it's sometimes these older pieces of work we see really do capture things as they were. But like we said on the bigger meta scale, every country, every culture has their own history. They have their own stories to keep kids in check and all that, the bedtime tales that scare you and all that. Disney, of course, I mentioned, got a hold of all this stuff here around the 20s and 30s and started figuring out the copyright laws in the United States. That's why they have their own little watered down version of this stuff too. So it's interesting how we're talking about stuff 100 to 150 years old in terms of print and how it's evolved and the effect it has today. Because the one thing is absolutely true today here in 2024 as of this recording is that horror is still something that we like because we all going to die. Where it's the fear of the unknown, and we've got some great looking movies that look like they're coming out. We've got a Wolfman movie coming out. We've got a Robert Eggers is coming up with his own Nosferatu movie. There's several things like it. It's just never going to go away. You could dumb it down. It can be silly or stupid, but when you do it, it's right. Oh, it's really, really nice. It's just, you know, and again, it all comes from this. This is why it's the gold standard, and we had to take a look at it here tonight.
So I'm looking at the IMDb, or not IMDb, but Wikipedia on this, because I always like to look at the stuff. I didn't realize that 1936, a year later, they decided to they had the production code, and they basically like we call them comic books, where you start getting like the code. You're not allowed to do certain things, so they had to like tone it down, like
the nudity or violence or
Dracula's groaning as he dies off camera was shortened, you know. Yeah, apparently that, and then there's the epilogue, you know, which played only during the film's initial run, in the scene familiar to the prologue of Frankenstein, featuring Universal steward Edward Van Sloan. He reappeared in the curtain speech, informed the audience, "Just a moment, ladies and gentlemen. Or before you go, we hope the memories of Dracula and Renfield won't give you bad dreams." You know, like, so they basically cut that out for whatever reason, so it went down to 85 minutes.
Yeah.
Which instead of getting what normal was 110 or basically 111 minutes.
That's almost 2 hours.
Yeah. So yeah, I don't know why they thought that was just too violent for people or something. I don't know. It's like I said, when you start censoring things just to censor things because you don't like it personally, that pisses me off. Especially
not only that, you're not used to seeing it.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. So, like, like I said, like, imagine if we only had the censored cut. You can't find the original print because somebody like 100 years ago decided, you know what, I don't like this. We're gonna cut it, and then that's all you get is this, you know, the cut version. So I don't know. That's my film snob.
No, but it happens even today. Disney does it with a lot of their older things. I mean, you see it in sports today. All that gets happened.
Well, yeah, they had it for China because China gets pissed off because they're Mulan. Look at that. They tried to edit, you know, for Mulan because certain scenes they don't like it in there. My point, my thing is that, like, when other countries get upset about something, like on YouTube, I've had videos where I'm blocked in other countries, you know, because they don't want to pay the copyright laws, you know. In order to have it, you know, so it'll be blocked everywhere except for United States, Canada, you know. But anyway, though, we're here to talk about Dracula, not talk about the censorship. But I thought it was interesting. 1931, though, and then my 1936. Yeah, this was like one of the first movies to get censored. You know, early on. I'm thinking, like, what was so offensive that they had to, like, the idea is like, if you don't want your kids watching this back then, your kid didn't watch it. You know, it's not like they can go out and be like, I'm gonna go by Billy's house and watch it on his computer or his TV. No, the only way you saw movies back then is if you went to a theater.
Yeah.
So I
was just in my bed at the time for something like this. So daring, so bold.
Yeah. So I don't understand, like, why they would even have the code be enforced, like, and then just like it's like it's not the kids. The kids, you know, it's up to the parents. But I don't know. Apparently, like I said, like. I guess it's not too hard to believe. Look at the way they how women dressed back then. You know, if you showed any kind of skin, you're considered, you know, a harlot. You know, you know that's why they all had the same. Everyone had the same one piece suit, you know, or things. Non-sexual
provocative kind of dress.
Yeah, the dresses had to be below the knees. Couldn't show your knees off. Because knees were considered, you know, risque. But right, it says Disney Plus puts trigger warnings on the educational ABC episodes. Then no warning on Pollyanna, and there's a buck naked boy swinging on the river, over the river in the opening credits. Credits from the back, but still, it's like, yeah. Well, that's because we all know about Disney, why they like that. Anyway, Bela Lugosi. Did I say it, Greg? No, I didn't.
Lugosi.
Yeah, no, I would have yelled at you.
I'm messing with you.
All right.
Final thoughts, guys?
Final thoughts. Like I said, this is a fantasy film. If you've never watched this movie, there's no reason why you can't. I said you can go to Walmart. They have this. There's this movie collection there. It's like $20-$30. It's on DVD. They're individual DVDs. They're not the double-sided ones, which I hate. They're normal. They're normal DVDs, and they actually look pretty cool. They're you know, nice font, everything.
You can also watch it on Amazon Prime.
True, yes. But I encourage those who want physical, go get physical, because who's to say it's going to be on there for streaming much longer?
Yeah, I've got an anniversary collection, I think, just of this film that has, like I said, the Spanish version. I want to say one or two others. I don't know if it's an Italian one or something, but I remember going, oh, I never knew such stuff like that existed. So you're watching, you're like, wow, is this supposed to be kind of the same thing their own way? And you're like, yeah. And then you see like through the culture how they'll take a story and do it a little differently. It's good stuff. Pixel, final thoughts?
Yep.
Final thoughts. A classic that will go ahead, and when you're looking through the history of film, this is going to be one of those shining gems, and there's a reason. So yes, watch Dracula.
I expected Pixel to be on the camera with his hair slicked back like Lugosi.
No. I should have brought out the vampire puppet. Did I ever show you that?
Yes. Out of context, it sounds frightening.
Ew, put it back. All right, guys. There you have it. Dracula, the original here. Seduced women movies. George Hamilton. Yeah, come on. You always bring up George Hamilton, Maranya. Now, Dracula is interesting. Maybe there'll be another sexy one here in the future. I certainly hope so, because after the 80s, they all got watered down. So there you go. All right, everybody. Thanks for watching, listening. Good night now, and happy Halloween.
This inspired an Ann Curtis production.
Really makes it a horror movie then, right?